Would Mario vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris in a Mushroom Kingdom general election? I've got a list of political issues here, and for each one, we're gonna rate Mario as either left-wing or right-wing. There is no such thing as the centre in the Mushroom Kingdom. So firstly, healthcare. Does Mario care about healthcare? Well, we know that he gets in a lot of battles, and so he would get a lot of use out of a free healthcare system. That said, he also earns a lot of money, and so he would get taxed a lot for this. And so for Mario, maybe this healthcare system wouldn't actually feel free, if you get what I mean. He puts in a lot of work to collect all these coins. I mean, can you imagine if you're playing a Mario game, but half of all the coins you collect get taxed by the government? But Mario's quite a benevolent fellow, right? I mean, he's a blue-collar worker for goodness sake, and so he would be quite sympathetic to the struggles of the working class. He's had quite a lot of close calls during his adventures, because sometimes he can't afford to stock up on items prior to going into battle. There's quite a lot of evil villains who would have had their evil plans foiled a lot sooner if Mario hadn't had to take time out of his adventure in order to grind for coins. Plus, Mario's own life has been saved quite a lot of times by free healthcare, like those free mushrooms that the government puts in those item blocks. However, a recent scandal unearthed by the newspaper The Daily Mushroom has revealed that, due to a lack of government funding, only 20% of these item blocks actually contain a mushroom. This is shocking. If only there was a more widespread public healthcare system with more funding, then the government could increase the provision of these free mushrooms. Then more lives could be saved. More of Mario's lives, that is. That said, we do have to address the elephant in the room, which is a problem that many real healthcare systems face, the problem of inefficiency. You see, the thing is, when a mushroom costs money, you only buy it if you need it, whereas if it's free, you'll consume it basically on instinct. I mean, don't believe me? Look at this video here. It's shameful, so wasteful. So actually, if the mushrooms are free, there might actually be a shortage due to everyone over-consuming them, and that would not be any good for Mario now, would it? That said, toads, they're pretty cowardly, aren't they? They don't venture outside of the Mushroom Kingdom that often, and so more often than not, I don't think they would really encounter these item blocks, and therefore they wouldn't really eat the mushrooms out of them. Sure, Nabbit would steal a few, but that would be it. So overall, I would say yes, Mario favours a free healthcare system, and so we're going to rate him as left-wing for this. Alright, next up, abortion. Does Mario care about abortion? Well, we know he likes choice. We know he also likes life. Lots of lives, in fact. So, off the cuff, we can't say that Mario is obviously pro-choice or obviously pro-life. Like, we've got to dig a bit deeper here. So, we know that one time, Mario got turned really small and was sucked up inside Bowser's body, while Mario voyaged 20,000 leagues inside the King Koopa. He encountered many different body parts that are usually not considered sentient, but were, for example, a talking kidney. Now, riddle me this. Would Mario have a conversation with a sentient kidney, but then turn around and say, oh, but it's okay to kill the fetus because it's not alive? Like, I don't know. I think the talking kidney would kind of set a bit of a precedent in Mario's mind, you know? Like, okay, maybe he would be pro-abortion if he lived in the real world, where kidneys probably don't talk, but this is the Mario universe. That said, we do see in Bowser's Inside Story that Mario is happy to beat up and kill said sentient body parts if it means he'll level up, which could suggest a certain degree of pragmatism on his part when it comes to the value he places on these lives. However, there is one more thing we need to discuss, which is, just because someone doesn't like abortion, it doesn't mean they think it should be illegal. As some people just think that, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad, the government simply just shouldn't get involved. Would Mario hold this opinion? I don't think so, because Mario is the literal definition of getting involved forcefully in order to defend those he perceives as innocent. So therefore, yeah, I'm pretty sure Mario would be against the legalization of abortion completely. So he might be willing to have exceptions for, cases of extremely bad health or forced pregnancy. So right-wing it is. The environment. As you know, the topic of environmental destruction is very important to Mario. In fact, you could say it's one of his favourite hobbies, with him destroying every single block that he sees, and murdering all the indigenous creatures for the mere crime of existing. By this point, it's surely not long until he starts drilling for oil. Oh, never mind, he's doing that now too. In Super Mario Sunshine, Mario spends the entire game clearing up pollution, though admittedly he was forced to do that by the legal system. So perhaps that doesn't say too much about his own personal opinions, though we can at least infer from the way the game presents this that Mario finds the pollution shocking, and would never dream of creating such pollution himself. He interacts with the natural environment a lot during his adventures, restoring trees, hatching eggs, swimming with the fishes, in more ways than one. No doubt he comes across lots of polluted rivers and so forth, and would be quite interested in having a stop be put to the destruction of these natural features. Well, the nice areas anyway. I'm sure there's quite a few ghastly levels that he would love nothing more than to see turned into parking garages. In fact, Mario often destroys lots of Bowser's industrial facilities that exacerbates the local environment, despite said facilities being a key source of employment and economic growth and development. On the other hand though, as a blue-collar worker, Mario's profession as a plumber literally relies on industrial infrastructure. Often during his adventures, he uses many technological devices, such as a flood and flying cars, which may not have been made, or at least would have been far more expensive, if there was more government taxes or regulations on industry for the sake of protecting the environment. Think of all the fumes that those go-karts emit. That said, with EGAD being EGAD, no doubt he's nowadays capable of just designing more environmentally friendly vehicles. I think the bottom line is that during the Mushroom Kingdom's early days, a more relaxed approach to environmental policy was probably necessary in order to not stifle innovation and economic growth. But now that the Mushroom Kingdom is reaching a sufficient level of development to invest in renewable technologies, I find it likely that Mario would be more inclined to permit these kind of regulations. So overall, I think Mario is probably more interested in environmental protection than in economic growth. So I'm going to rate him as more left-leaning, while acknowledging that the majority of people across the entire political spectrum would like the environment to be protected to some degree. But welfare programs. Does Mario support welfare programs? Well, as you know, Bob, Mario has quite a high income, and yet we never see him donate this to charity or give it to the poor. But what he does do is spend it at local shops. You know what this means he could support? Say it with me now. Trickle-down economics. Have you ever heard the phrase, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for life? Trickle-down economics is a bit like that. If you give out handouts, then the person might become dependent on the handouts. Whereas, if you spend money at local businesses, then this money will encourage enterprise. It's essentially a reward for work, a reward for business. And then, not only will business A have more money because Mario spent money at it, but then business A will go and spend that money on business B, or on employee B, and then they'll have more money that they can spend somewhere else. And then it's like a multiplier effect, a cycle of loads of people in the local economy having higher income and thus being able to buy more stuff and have a higher standard of living. So thus, when Mario spends money in a shop in Rogueport, that can actually have a big improvement on the standard of living for all the impoverished people living there. Of course, there are certain drawbacks to this trickle-down economics that Mario might be doing. For example, what if somebody, with the extra money they earn from Mario spending, what if they just decide to save it instead of spending it? That means this cycle of increased spending kind of just ends there, and so it doesn't really benefit the economy as much as it could have if the people went and spent the money that Mario went and spent on them. Plus, the people who arguably need this money the most are the people who are unemployed. And well, Mario doesn't exactly buy stuff off unemployed people, does he now? Well, not most of the time. But then again, we're not so much here to debunk Mario's opinions, as simply to find out what they are. One thing that we have to consider is that just because somebody doesn't help the poor, it doesn't mean that they're not in favour of welfare programs. I've met many people who do nothing to help the poor whatsoever, but still feel very passionately about advocating for the government to feed the poor using money taxed off rich people. Could it be that Mario shares this opinion? Again, I don't think so. That doesn't give off a very Mario attitude. Mario's very hands-on, very involved. he's not the kind of person that would expect Princess Peach to just solve all the problems. And besides, I think the Mushroom Kingdom's small enough that, you know, the kindness of individuals and community groups is good enough to make sure that everybody is looked after. So I'm going to rate Mario as right-wing for this. LGBTQ rights. Well, I think Thousand Year Door has made this one clear for us. Left-wing it is. Alright, immigration! This is going to be a lovely one. So, as we saw in the Mario movie, Mario is not a native of the Mushroom Kingdom, but instead comes from Brooklyn. So from this, we can at the least infer that Mario is in favour of work-related immigration. But we don't really know if he's a naturalised citizen now of the Mushroom Kingdom, so we can't really draw too many inferences from that. But we can at least assume he's got his residency, if that kind of thing even exists there. When it comes to open borders or not, this is admittedly quite a tough one, because a lot of the Mario universe is just a bunch of small towns, you know. You don't really see much of borders. I mean, okay, the Conquer Kingdom has a border, and we saw in Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga that they had to have passports, Mario and Luigi did, but I don't know if it was just for that game, so it counts for something, but like, nonetheless it still suggests that borders aren't really much of a thing in the Mario universe. That said, Mario would no doubt know about all the different low-life criminals that exist in the Mario universe, and no doubt he would be keen to keep them out of the Mushroom Kingdom. In fact, you could say that's literally his job, as he goes around beating up every single Goomba and Koopa he sees. They're all criminals to him. Criminals! But in all seriousness, the Origami King has shown that Toad Town actually has quite a lot of diversity in. For example, there's, you know, several houses inhabited by Sniffits or Goombas, for example. Now that's interesting because these species, they're usually associated with being the minions of the enemy of the state, King Bowser. So what this shows is that actually, the Mushroom Kingdom is willing to accept foreigners if they renounce their old allegiances. Or in other words, they have immigration, but it's filtered immigration. However, given that both the left and the right claim to be in favour of filtered immigration, we're still a bit stuck for now. If only we could establish whether or not the Mushroom Kingdom itself has a border. Okay, in the Mario movie, Mario never gets to a Mushroom Kingdom border, but what we have to remember is that the Mushroom Kingdom is bigger than just Toad Town. It's all the surrounding forests and stuff as well, and various other towns. So therefore, when Mario comes out the pipe near the beginning of the movie, he's already spawned within the inside of the Mushroom Kingdom, so therefore there might still be a border, he just skipped it, basically. However, we never see any indication that there's any kind of border police that wants to chase Mario down for illegally entering the country, so there's always that. That said, the Toads are so peaceful, I doubt they could repel intruders if they tried. They're not good combatants. In general, I think they just rely on no intruders coming by, and Princess Peach beating up anybody who does. A common facet of right-wing immigration policy is to do with a merit-based immigration system, but we don't really see anything like that in the Mario universe. Probably due to the Mushroom Kingdom's extremely small government, it's not really able to administrate that kind of thing, even if it wanted to. In general, they seem to have a pretty simple come and go as you please policy. That said, you do notice a distinct lack of diversity in the Mario movie's Toad Town, but that contradicts what I just said a minute ago about Toad Town in the Origami King having lots of diversity. So, what this shows is that before Mario arrived, there wasn't diversity, but after Mario arrived, there was diversity, which, as we know, correlation equals causation, so therefore, Mario caused this uptick in immigration, therefore, he's probably pro-immigration. So, let's rank him as left-wing. Alright, gun control! As you know, Bob, Mario always carries a plethora of weapons with him for totally only self-defense. I mean, look at how he bravely defends himself from this evil, malicious Goomba who was threatening his life. You evil Goomba scum, have you no shame? And yes, Mario even uses a gun sometimes. That said, Mario is basically part of the Mushroom Kingdom Defense Force, and therefore, even if guns were outlawed, he'd probably still be able to get a license from Peach anyway to use a weapon. And therefore, when we talk about Mario's stance on gun control, what we really mean is, does he think that other people should be able to have guns, seeing as he'll be able to get one anyway? The Mushroom Kingdom has an extremely low crime rate, at least when it comes to crimes committed by its own citizens, and so therefore I don't think there'd be much risk of the citizens using their guns for evil. An important thing to note though is that due to the Mushroom Kingdom's aforementioned lack of borders, even if they introduced a law banning guns, there would be nothing to stop criminals bringing them across the border anyway and using them against the citizens. Or in other words, all this law would do is de-arm the citizens while doing nothing to de-arm the criminals. If you could at least de-arm the criminals, then maybe you could make a case for a gun-free society because it's like, you know, safer and stuff. But if you can't even take the guns off the criminals, you're literally just creating more bad situations for everyone, despite your good intentions. But on the other hand, these poor innocent toads, they could hurt themselves if they have guns. That said, Mario doesn't strike me as much of an elitist, and so if he's happy for himself to have a gun, I'm sure he'd be happy for the toads to have one as well, as long as they pass a basic proficiency test. I mean, the toads are dumb, but they're not all that dumb. So overall, Mario is quite a hands-on guy when it comes to self-defense, and so I think he would be more right-wing when it comes to gun control. Alright, so, for those lovely people who skipped through the video or can't count, let's now, very dramatically, tally up the scores. Mario would vote for Kamala Harris. Congratulations, President Kamala, you won the Mushroom Kingdom election. But, you know what you didn't win? This fake Nintendo Direct, where the presenters murder each other after getting into an argument about Chibi Robo Ziplash HD. I'm going to promote this video until I die. Farewell.